back. You're listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on the number one global business talk and news network on the internet, IBGR, International Business Growth Radio, the world of business at your fingertips. And today I am joined by Lee Benson, the creator of the Mind methodology, the author of Your Most Important Number, and all around really nice, smart business guy. Lee, thanks for coming back.
Of course.
So in this segment, we decided we were going to talk about leadership and leadership development. And given that we've established, your consulting business is called Execute to Win because people want to win. And so what is the role of a leader?
Well, one of the questions I love asking when I go into a new organization to work with them is, do you have a definition of what it means to be a leader here?
Okay.
And they never have it, Wally. They don't. And they, well, what would you say? And I said, well, my simplified version of it would be to be a leader in this organization means you get results and you foster an environment where every team member is intrinsically motivated and empowered to create more value over time.
Okay. So a leader is someone who gets results in service of creating value over time.
Well, and creates an environment. So that word's really important. They've got all the numbers. Mm-hmm. What's the environment, the rules of engagement, et cetera, that they're operating within to be able to create value? And we want them to be intrinsically motivated. So when they talk about, we want people to be engaged, well, engaged with what? Okay. Intrinsically motivated and empowered, and they sort of earn those decision rights over time as they prove themselves. But that feels really good. What I find with team members is, where does that self-esteem and intrinsic motivation come from? And when they're accomplishing challenging things and winning within their team or as a team, it feels amazing. And when you get it right, what I've observed in the largest company that I built from scratch, I mentioned earlier, had just over 500 employees at the time I sold it.
Right.
Every team member acted like the CEO of their own role. You walked up to them, they knew their numbers, what was going on, how they fit in with everybody else, relatively speaking, in the organization. It was really, really cool. And now they're driving the value creation. It's not me telling everybody what to do or leaders doing top down.
So I think this is really amazing because when we talk about creating value, in our last segment towards the end, one of the important takeaways that I had was find a methodology that makes sense to you and follow it. And really the next level then, when you talked about leadership development, the key word of creating a success environment, essentially, right? And I have a feeling here that there's something that combines with a success environment and also solving the problem, because you are an engineer at heart, or a scientist, I should say, solving the problem that goal setting doesn't work. So I'm wondering if we could talk about leadership creating an environment that solves the problem where goal setting doesn't work, but make sure that we're achieving our goals. Is that right? Without getting too wrapped around the fence post, does that question make sense?
Well, get them doing the best work every team member they can do to create the most value for the organization. And, again, quickly, traditional goal setting, it looks great on paper. Mm-hmm. Everybody says that's what we need to do. But when you go audit every goal in an organization, go do that. For the listeners, what percentage of the goals are really thoughtful and designed to create value? Or are they not going to actually add the value that they should?
Right.
So, part of that environment that you create as a leader is just keeping them doing their best work to create the most value possible.
Okay.
Now, leadership development in general, and there's two pieces I'd love to talk about, just generally speaking, and then for the CEO.
Sure.
So generally speaking, what most organizations do is they try to put a one-size-fits-all program in place.
Okay.
Especially larger organizations, they send them to a 2-day, 3-day, leadership workshop, and I'll ask the question, well, how did it go? Oh, it went great. Well, how do you know? Well, the leaders took a survey and they said they really enjoyed themselves. And I asked the follow-up question: is there any correlation between that leadership development course that they went through or seminar workshop and measurable improvements in their actual key metrics that they're being, held accountable to achieving?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is always, well, no, we don't do that. Well, then shouldn't everything you do as an organization be done to make it measurably better, and everything else, at least the intent,
Right.
everything else is a waste of time and resources? Well, yeah, we just don't have it. And the nice thing about the MIND methodology is when you can see the one number for that leader's team that says above all is they're winning or losing the game, and you can see the best work that they and their team are doing to keep it on track or overdrive it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're behind at any point in time, it only takes about 15 minutes to kind of look through that data and say, this is exactly where this leader needs to develop to create more value. It's a very surgical approach.
That's awesome.
And it may be building on a strength. It may not be a weakness. You just need more of this over there. But does that make sense, Wally?
Yeah, I think absolutely, because it's the difference between saying, hey, let's send you off to leadership camp for 2 days, and you come back and rah, like, yeah, we're gonna really, kick butt with the team and feel really good, and versus saying, no, based on this metric, which is why you're here, we're gonna see how you're doing on that on a regular basis. And then over time, you're going to naturally lead in that direction, because you have a true north, if you will, or you have the one thing that you're supposed to be focusing on. And I love the word surgical, because particularly in this day and age, I find as a leader of my own organization and just in generally speaking, the signal to noise ratio can become very, very out of whack with very little signal and lots of noise, where people feel productive or they feel like they're making massive progress on whatever it is. And when you step back and are actually looking at it through a value creation lens and through whatever their most important number is, most of the answers just take care of themselves.
They really do. And we should be super careful to never confuse activity for doing the work to improve what's most important. And I think most operating methodologies out there, I mean, there's OKR, there's 40X, there's EOS, or scaling up. There's literally thousands that have been created by different consulting firms and individual consultants. They have a real challenge in that they make process more important than what is most important. Mm-hmm. And that's a big part of why I put the MIND methodology together, to make sure everybody is always doing things, making decisions, taking actions, commitments, et cetera, that will improve what's most important. Activity doesn't matter, for sure. To one of your points earlier, never confuse enthusiasm for capability. It's good to have positive mindset and create a positive environment, but if that's all it is, that's going to feel pretty hollow to all the team members.
So you and I have had a couple discussions prior to this live show, and one of our comments that we both kicked back and forth was, spreadsheets don't work, and I think it's very similar to what you're talking about here, in terms of these methodologies don't work if all you focus on is process, but you lose the context of why. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious, what are some of the failure points that you saw over, while you were building the aerospace, and then while you've been continuing with the MIND methodology? What are some of the failure points that you see that are common to all of these different methodologies that the MIND methodology solves?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is the other ones. In my experience, they make process most important, not creating value, not improving what really is most important, like cash flow or profit, et cetera.
Yeah.
And when I think about leadership development, just generally speaking, and there was a point where we got stuck as a company, and I changed the approach to leadership development. One, you can see where they need to develop, but I broke it into 3 categories. The first one was leadership, how you show up, like the traits, the characteristics, et cetera. Two, foundational readiness, a leader's ability to put all the things in place to be able to achieve the results now and put things in place today to get even better results in the future. And then third was operating methodology. What were the consistent things that you did with your team to continually create value and accelerate that over time? And when I did that, there were a number of categories in each of those three areas. And I would rank every leader red, green, or yellow in each. And I put up a big board for everybody in the company to see every leader on there in red, green, or yellow, and all of them. And lo and behold, the ones that were mostly green got the best results. And within 3 months, almost everybody was green, a lot more green than they were before. And the company started to accelerate. But it's a great way to think about leadership development. So you look at those categories and look at their results, and that tells you where to surgically develop them.
So what would you say to someone? So I know in my leadership journey that oftentimes, especially with folks who are more caught in the day to day, that I found it very valuable actually to have them focus more on process rather than a number or rather than a result, more because of the role that they have in the company or something of that nature, because they don't have the catbirds view or the that the CEO would have, for instance. So what would you say to someone who challenged you on the focusing too much on process versus numbers?
Well, I would say focus on creating value.
Okay.
That's what it's all about. And if you're in a little silo with no external information to tell you how what you do impacts the surrounding teams, that's not an ideal environment.
Yeah.
Ideally, you should be able to see how when you create value by improving your most important number will improve the next one up, and it'll create all the way to the top of the organization.
Cool. And so how I received that was basically if the process focus doesn't have some sort of measurable feedback loop so that you know you're on track or not, then you're missing half of the equation, if not more.
You totally are. And then when leaders are completely caught up in firefighting and all of that, think about it this way: eating and dreaming at the same time. So leaders, depending on the level in the organization, eating is getting great results today with what we have to work with, and dreaming is doing things today to get even better results in the future. What's the right ratio for you?
That's a great point. And folks, if you want to dive deeper into the concept of eating versus dreaming, because we can only very touch on it here in this podcast, definitely pick up a copy of Your Most Important Number by Lee Benson at your favorite online retailer. And you're listening to the Exitology, Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on the International Business Growth Radio Network.